Autobiography of a Yogi is the memoir of Paramahansa Yogananda, one of the world's most famous yoga practitioners and teachers. It provides practical lessons about yoga, spirituality, and how to live a good life, interspersed with highlights and anecdotes from the author's life. It was reportedly Steve Jobs' favorite book. He found such great value in Autobiography of a Yogi that he read it once a year and had 500 copies distributed at his funeral. Yogananda, 1893 to 1952, is best known for bringing Kriya Yoga to the U.S. He taught thousands of American students and thereby created a spiritual connection between the West and his homeland of India. Yogananda also founded the Self-Realization Fellowship, a spiritual organization that now has over 500 locations globally. Between the schools he founded and the books he wrote, Yogananda ensured that his teachings reached millions of people all over the world. Autobiography of a Yogi outlines Yogananda's experiences chronologically, arguably a clear and logical way to tell his life story. In this guide, we've prefaced this biographical material with foundational information about yoga in general, and Kriya Yoga in particular, to give added context to Yogananda's practices and experiences. Our commentary will go into greater detail about some key points of yoga, such as the importance of controlling your life energy, prana, and how to properly understand God. We'll also compare some of Yogananda's teachings to those found in other belief systems. Finally, we'll examine some of Yogananda's teachings through a scientific lens. For example, that accomplished yogis could create wind inside a closed room and had no need to sleep. New section. What is yoga? To better understand Yogananda's life and his accomplishments, we'll start by exploring some of yoga's key beliefs and practices. Then we'll explain what distinguishes Kriya from other forms of yoga. Yogananda explains that yoga is a religious practice that originated in Hinduism. It's linked to Hindu teachings surrounding illusion and reality. The Vedas, the oldest Hindu scriptures, describe God as the only reality in the universe. Thus, Hinduism teaches that all physical things, including you as an individual being, are illusions. These illusions are collectively called Maya. What's real and what's an illusion? The nature of reality is a frequently discussed topic in Hinduism. For instance, in the Bhagavad Gita, one of Hinduism's holy scriptures, the god Vishnu takes a human form named Krishna and discusses various religious and spiritual topics with the warrior prince Arjuna. One of Krishna's key lessons for Arjuna is, only things that are eternal and unchangeable are real. Therefore, the only things that are truly real are the soul, what he calls Purusha, and divine beings like Vishnu himself. Everything else, anything that's physical or experienced by the physical body, is an illusion, Maya. Krishna elaborates that Purusha and divine beings are themselves only fragments of a single universal power and consciousness named Brahman, what others, including Yogananda, call God. Thus, although many living beings each have their own Purusha, each of them came from God and is part of God. These ideas about Brahman's multiple forms bear resemblance to the Christian concept of the Holy Trinity. The Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are three separate entities, yet they're also all aspects of the same God. By contrast, Brahman has countless different aspects, one for every living thing. The word yoga means union with God. Yoga is designed to help you recognize and reject Maya while accepting God. In doing so, you stop thinking of yourself as an individual, and you instead become a conduit for God's knowledge, will, and power. Someone who achieves this is said to be enlightened. With enough training and spiritual growth, a yogi can break through the illusions of Maya and enter a state called samadhi, where their individual consciousness temporarily merges with God. Yogananda describes samadhi as a state of perfect bliss and total awareness. A yogi who enters samadhi sees and experiences the entire universe all at once. Yogananda says that the strength of a yogi's connection with God is measured by the intensity of their bliss while in samadhi. Stronger feelings of bliss indicate a stronger connection and therefore greater progress in yoga. Short form note, there's some variation in how people understand and teach about samadhi. Yogananda presents samadhi as a spectrum, where the strength of your connection with God can be measured by how blissful you are while in samadhi. However, some other teachers say there are specific levels or stages of samadhi. For example, one describes 3 levels of samadhi, categorized by how far you separate from the physical world and your sense of self. Another says that there are 4 stages, based on how much active conscious thought you're experiencing. There's also some dispute regarding the connection between samadhi and enlightenment. Specify Kali, yoga practitioners disagree on whether these 2 concepts mean the same thing or are instead 2 different but linked states. Reincarnation, karma, and yoga. Since yoga comes from Hinduism, let's discuss some of that religion's core tenets. According to Yogananda, one of Hinduism's central beliefs is reincarnation. After death, your soul is reborn into another body. However, because Hindus also believe that the physical world is illusory, This really means that people are all trapped in a collective delusion. Even death doesn't free you from Maya, because you come back as another being who's also trapped in it. Therefore, Hindus seek to escape from this delusion. Short form note: this freedom from the physical world and from the cycle of reincarnation is called moksha. In ceasing to exist as an individual and rejoining with the universe, with God, as Yogananda would say, you experience eternal happiness and peace. A Hindu attaining moksha can be roughly equated to a Christian reaching heaven. Another central belief, and one that Yogananda talks about frequently, is karma. Karma is a cosmic stockpile of good and bad deeds from all of your lifetimes. Your karma determines how blessed or cursed your reincarnations will be. Past good deeds will lead to better lives in the future, while past bad deeds will lead to worse lives in the future. For example, Hinduism teaches that a virtuous person might be reborn into an important and respected family. A wicked person might be born into an impoverished servant family or even be reborn as an animal. Short form note: Western culture has borrowed the word karma and given it a more informal definition, that doing good deeds will cause good things to happen to you, and doing bad deeds will cause bad things to happen to you. The key difference between this definition and karma's formal definition is that in the latter case, karma works through reincarnation. You do good deeds so that your next life will be better, not so that good things will happen to you right now. In addition, Yogananda notes, karma, both good and bad, binds you to the cycle of reincarnation. After you die, some of your karma gets used up to give you another life, like withdrawing from a cosmic bank account. Normally, to break free of the cycle, you must expend your karma across many different lifetimes. In fact, Yogananda taught that this process normally takes 1,000,000 years. However, Hinduism also teaches that God can free you from your karma. Therefore, worshipping God through yoga allows you to escape from reincarnation much more quickly than usual. Short form note: in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains how it's possible to expend all of your karma when, by definition, anything you do should accrue more of it. The key is to act selflessly, not in the sense of generously, but literally with no sense of self. To have no sense of self is to understand you're a vessel through which God acts. This is why breaking the illusion that you have an individual self is so crucial to practicing yoga. Karma binds that illusion of you to the cycle of reincarnation. So if you have no sense of you, there's nothing for karma to take hold of. Therefore, by worshiping God, you're freed from your past karma, and by acting selflessly, you ensure that you don't accumulate any new karma. The Eightfold Path of Yoga. Yogananda explains that in addition to being a type of worship, yoga is also a process of personal growth. Practitioners work to achieve physical, mental, and spiritual mastery of themselves through exercises and meditation. That's why the foundation of any style of yoga, including Kriya Yoga, is the Eightfold Path. According to Yogananda, the path consists of 8 practices that help yogis master their bodies and minds, as well as guiding them toward a true understanding of God. Although he doesn't explore the path in detail in this book, we'll cover its 8 practices here to provide helpful context for understanding Yogananda's teachings. Also, note that the Eightfold Path is not a checklist of tasks to work through one by one. A yoga practitioner should strive to practice all 8 of these things at all times. 1. Yama, behaviors to avoid. The 5 yamas are violence, inaction, speech, and thought, lying, stealing, sex, and greed. These are selfish actions that keep you focused on the illusion of you, instead of on God, and therefore block you from reaching enlightenment. Short form note: the 5 yamas closely resemble 5 of the 10 commandments. Thou shalt not kill, violence; thou shalt not bear false witness, lying; thou shalt not steal, stealing; thou shalt not commit adultery, sex; and thou shalt not covet, greed. This is an example of universal morality, the phenomenon that almost everyone, regardless of culture or upbringing, holds similar fundamental morals. Those morals boil down to the belief that harming others is bad and cooperating with others is good. However, note that the exact details of morality may vary among cultures and religions, like how the 10 Commandments only forbid adultery, while the Eightfold Path teaches total abstinence from sex. 2. Niyama, good deeds or duties to observe. The 5 niyamas are cleanliness, contentment, discipline, learning, and devotion to God. These practices create a healthy physical and mental environment, allowing you to more effectively seek God. Short form note: the first 4 niyamas have obvious functions. They're designed to keep you physically healthy, emotionally calm, and mentally ready and able to learn. However, devotion arguably requires some more explanation. It means devotion in the literal sense, dedicating everything you do to a higher power. It also carries a connotation of surrender. In devoting your actions to God, you're also giving up control over the outcomes of those actions. This type of devotion is like saying, it's in God's hands. Remember that this kind of selfless action prevents you from accruing karma. 3. Asana, Posture. Holding yourself in a stable and comfortable position allows for extended meditation. This helps you to build physical strength and discipline, thereby gaining better control over your own body. Short form note. Asana originally referred to a specific type of seated pose, but in modern yoga practices, it can mean any type of posture or physical exercise. What most Western people think of as yoga is actually asana, and it's therefore only one part of what yoga really is. 4. Pranayama, energy control. Breathing techniques allow you to control energy currents both within your body and in the world around you. For example, Yogananda says he once saw a yogi perform a particular pranayama with such skill and power that he created intense wind in a closed room. Short form note, there's scientific evidence that breathing exercises have numerous health benefits, particularly in terms of relaxation and stress reduction. Since stress can cause or worsen many health problems, ranging from body aches to anxiety and depression, reducing stress with breathing exercises will arguably promote good health and make you feel energized. However, there's no scientific backing for Yogananda's claim that proper breathing will allow you to control energy. 5. Pratyahara, inward focus. This means detaching your senses from the outside world. Directing all your attention to your own thoughts and moment-to-moment experiences helps you to gain a greater understanding of yourself. According to Yogananda, skilled yogis can shut out the outside world and direct their attention inward no matter where they are. Short form note, if you aren't yet practiced enough to close your mind off from distractions, it's often easier to start by physically closing yourself off from distractions, finding a quiet place where you won't be disturbed while practicing your yoga. 6. Dharana, concentration. This means focusing on a single thought for extended periods of time, which helps you build mental strength and discipline. Short form note, shutting out all the stimuli that modern society bombards you with may seem difficult. So here are some tips to help you focus on just one thing. One common practice is to pick a mantra, a word or short phrase that you repeat to yourself, focusing on nothing but that. Another popular method of focusing is using visualization exercises. For instance, imagining a light bulb emitting light that expands to fill your entire being, leaving no room for extraneous thoughts. 7. Dhyana, meditation. This is a state of calm and focus. Short form note, it may be hard to understand the difference between dharana, concentration, and dhyana, meditation. The easiest way to explain it is that dharana is an action, while dhyana is a state of mind. 8. Samadhi, expanded consciousness. This is the all-seeing state of bliss we discussed before. It's the most difficult part of the Eightfold Path, and most people must practice the other 7 steps for years before even their first experience of samadhi. Yoga masters can enter this state at will, but less accomplished practitioners must be guided to it through meditation. Samadhi and the dangers of siddhis. Progress towards samadhi frequently gives rise to siddhis, the seemingly supernatural abilities that yogis say come with practicing yoga. Although Yogananda frequently describes yogis, including himself, making use of siddhis, other teachers warn that siddhis are obstacles on the path to samadhi. This is because sudden revelations and new abilities are likely to distract you, break your concentration, or frighten you. Even worse, you might come to see siddhis as goals rather than obstacles. The key to moving past these obstacles is to maintain your focus, accept the siddhis for what they are, and trust that God is guiding you. Finally, remember that the goal of yoga isn't to develop superpowers, it's to connect with God. Reaching Kaivalya. The Eightfold Path of Yoga leads to the ultimate goal of enlightenment, called Kaivalya, true understanding of the universe. Yogananda describes Kaivalya as the intuitive understanding of something that can't be understood intellectually, the something being God. The only way to gain such understanding is to unite your spirit with God through yoga. Short form note, one segment of the Bhagavad Gita helps to illustrate why God can't be understood rationally and must be experienced spiritually through Kaivalya. Arjuna asks to witness the true form of God, but he's immediately overwhelmed by what he sees. Arjuna receives a vision of everything that's ever existed and ever will exist, all together in a single infinite entity. God is much too vast and powerful for his limited human mind to comprehend. The experience leaves Arjuna terrified and confused. This is why Hinduism teaches that God must be experienced through samadhi. What is Kriya Yoga? Kriya Yoga is a particular style of yoga that heavily emphasizes pranayama, breathing exercises and controlling your inner life energy, prana. All forms of yoga include pranayama, but not to the same extent as Kriya. Yogananda explains that these breathing exercises remove toxins from the blood, which allows life energy to flow more freely. You might picture pranayama as removing trash, toxins, that's blocking the flow of a river, blood and life energy. Short form note, while some claims about yoga's benefits lack scientific backing, Evidence suggests that deep breathing and meditation exercises boost the immune system, making you more resistant to disease and what Yogananda terms toxins. One scientific explanation for this is that yoga reduces stress, and an improved immune response is a side effect of that. It's also possible that breathing exercises involve the placebo effect, a phenomenon where people feel healthier simply by believing that they're healthy. Once your life energy is flowing freely, Yogananda continues, you must then focus it around your central nervous system, spine, and brain, which boosts your natural ability to perceive and understand God. In other words, these exercises are designed to help you reach enlightenment more quickly by strengthening your mind and body. Understanding chakras. Although Yogananda doesn't use the term chakra in this book, it's likely that's what he's referring to when he describes concentrating your life energy around your brain and spine. Yoga teaches that there are 7 focal points for energy, called chakras, located in the central nervous system. Each of these chakras influences your physical and spiritual health. When all 7 are working properly, you're strong, calm, and spiritually aware. However, the chakras can become blocked or imbalanced, which causes various problems in your body and interferes with your attempts to reach enlightenment. Various exercises and meditations, such as those Yogananda describes, are believed to correct problems in the chakras. A scene from the Nickelodeon cartoon Avatar, The Last Airbender, provides an excellent summary of all 7 chakras, where they're located, what they do, and how they become blocked or imbalanced. However, while watching it, note that mastering meditation and energy control in real life takes years, not minutes. New section. Yogananda's birth and early childhood. Now that we've explored the basics of Hinduism and yoga, let's discuss Yogananda's life story. Yogananda notes that his birth was prophesied by a Bengali guru named Lahiri Mahasaya. The prophecy said that Yogananda would become a great yogi and undertake an important spiritual mission, though it didn't specify what that mission would be. Short form note: much of what we know about Mahasaya today comes directly from Autobiography of a Yogi. However, some quotes attributed to the guru provide some more insight into his personality and beliefs. Mahasaya said that seeking God is the only worthwhile pursuit in life, but that the trappings and ceremonies of organized religion are unnecessary. He believed that meditation is all you need to worship God, and that meditating on any problem will reveal the solution to it through that connection with God. The man who would become Paramahansa Yogananda was originally named Mukunda Lal Ghosh. He was born on January 5, 1893, in the city of Gorakhpur, India. Short form note: although the author was known as Mukunda in childhood, this guide will refer to him as Yogananda throughout to avoid confusion. Even as a young child, Yogananda had frequent spiritual experiences, such as prophetic dreams and visions. He also demonstrated supernatural abilities, such as causing other children's kites to fly over to him simply by exerting his will upon them. Furthermore, Yogananda remembered his previous lives. Siddhis, extraordinary abilities. As previously noted, abilities like those Yogananda describes here are called siddhis. The Sanskrit word siddhi means success or perfection, so called because they're feats of understanding and controlling your body, mind, and the world around you. To give a few examples of siddhis, controlling your body can allow you to levitate or exhibit superhuman strength. Controlling your mind can enable you to remember your past lives, as Yogananda did, or foretell the future. In fact, prophecy will continue to play a large role in Yogananda's life story. Controlling the world around you can allow you to manipulate air currents, move things without touching them, as Yogananda did with the kites, or cause objects to appear and disappear as if by magic. Though these powers seem supernatural, yogis claim that anyone can learn siddhis with enough training. Being born with such abilities as Yogananda says he was, is rare but not unheard of. Running away from home. Yogananda, eager to begin his spiritual training, frequently ran away from home. Each time he planned to either look for a guru or to make a pilgrimage to the sacred Himalayan mountains. Short form note: in Hinduism and Indian culture, guru means someone who's both a teacher and a spiritual guide in Hinduism. This word has entered the English language with a definition more like simply teacher or expert, but the religious connotations are crucial to its original meaning. However, no matter how many times he tried, he never made it far from home. Yogananda explains that he failed because it wasn't the right time for him. His destined teacher hadn't appeared yet, so God and fate blocked him from beginning his spiritual journey. Short form note: destiny is a complex subject in Hinduism. Hindu scriptures teach that every living thing has a destiny, called dharma, that's determined by karma and set by God. However, people also have free will, which can be misguided by the illusions of Maya. They trick themselves into believing that they're in control of their own destiny and thereby trap themselves in a delusion. You could think of your destiny as what you're supposed to do, but fulfilling your destiny requires you to understand and submit to God's will. The prophecy and the amulet. In addition to foretelling Yogananda's birth, Mahasaya gave a second prophecy. Yogananda's mother would receive an amulet, which she would pass to Yogananda after her death. Yogananda would then carry the amulet, and when the amulet disappeared, it would be time for Yogananda to meet his guru. The prophecy came true. Yogananda's mother left the amulet to him when she died. It was one of Yogananda's most precious possessions, and he kept it in a locked box, except for brief times when he wanted to look at it. Short form note. Psychic powers and prophetic abilities are frequently attributed to yoga masters such as Lahiri Mahasaya. However, yogis don't claim such abilities as their own. Rather, Mahasaya would likely say that he was simply a conduit for the knowledge and will of God, and that was how he knew the future. However, one day, Yogananda opened the box to find that the amulet was gone. That same day, seemingly by chance, he met Sri Yukteswar Giri, a Swami who would become his guru. Short form note. Swami is a title of respect for a senior member of a Hindu monastic order. This word can also mean religious teacher, similar to guru. Shri is also an Indian title of respect, used when speaking about or to an important person. Unlike guru and Swami, Shri doesn't necessarily suggest a religious leader, although in this case, Sri Yukteswar happened to also be a spiritual guide. New section. Yogananda's education. To fulfill his destiny, Yogananda needed to learn a great deal about both the spiritual and the physical world. In this section, we'll discuss his studies of Kriya Yoga with Sri Yukteswar, as well as the education he received at Calcutta University. Sri Yukteswar, the prophesied teacher. Yogananda, still called Mukunda at the time, says that he and Yukteswar felt a spiritual connection before they even spoke to each other. Both of them knew immediately that they were destined to become student and teacher. Yogananda says he lived and studied at Yukteswar's ashram, religious community, from 1910 to 1920. Despite being his teacher, Yukteswar rarely told Yogananda what to do or directly answered his questions. Instead, he offered gentle guidance and helped Yogananda find the answers himself. Short form note. By guiding his pupils rather than simply telling them the answers, Sri Yukteswar was engaging them in active learning. As the name suggests, active learning involves students taking active roles in their education. For example, by practicing skills, discussing complex topics, and looking for answers to questions themselves. Active learning is generally believed to produce better results than rote memorization in terms of student engagement, information retention, and true understanding of the subject matter, as opposed to simply parroting answers without knowing what they mean. In addition to offering spiritual training, Yukteswar taught the value of living and participating in daily life. Yukteswar had great respect for people with practical skills, from handymen to artisans. Yogananda explains that this appreciation for the mundane was unusual for a spiritual leader like Yukteswar. However, it provided his students with a more well-rounded education and a better understanding of the world. This is important because understanding the physical world is a key step toward understanding that the physical isn't real, a core tenet of Hinduism, and thereby reaching enlightenment. Short form note, again, the Bhagavad Gita can provide some insight into Yogananda's writing. In this case, how earthly pursuits like work or art help you to connect with God and reach enlightenment. Recall our earlier discussion about destiny, dharma. Fulfilling your dharma is synonymous with doing God's will, and therefore it's crucial to spiritual growth. For example, Arjuna is a warrior, so his dharma is to fight. For artisans, fulfilling their dharma would mean working diligently to create the best products they can. After Yogananda completed his training, Yukteswar initiated him into the Swami order. Ordinarily, the initiate's guru chooses a new name for him to reflect his spiritual journey or some exceptional quality he displays. However, with his characteristic emphasis on gentle guidance, Yukteswar simply told Yogananda to choose his own name. This was when he took the name Yogananda, meaning bliss through union with God. Short form note. Yogananda doesn't give many details about the Swami order in this book. It's an ancient monastic organization whose members take vows renouncing physical and selfish attachments. These vows are poverty, renunciation of possessions, chastity, renunciation of sex, and obedience, renunciation of ego. Taking a new name is part of becoming a Swami, and it's also a common practice across many religions and spiritual traditions, ranging from Buddhism and Hinduism to Christianity and Judaism. Yogananda's worldly education. In addition to receiving training in Kriya Yoga, Yogananda earned a Bachelor of Arts degree from Calcutta University in 1915. Yukteswar had encouraged him to go to university. He'd foreseen that Yogananda would teach yoga in America and said that Westerners would listen more readily to somebody with a degree. Short form note: Calcutta University is consistently rated as one of the best public universities in India, and it often ranks #1 in the country. Holding a degree from such a prestigious university likely gave Yogananda much greater credibility in the Western world, as Yuktaswar predicted. However, though he did get his degree, Yogananda says that he was always too focused on his spiritual training to study. In fact, he only passed his final exams by a series of seemingly impossible coincidences. For example, Yogananda had a friend make up questions about the exam material to quiz him, and then those same questions appeared, nearly word for word, on the finals. On another exam, he failed to answer so many questions that it should have been impossible for him to pass, but the passing grade for that subject was unexpectedly lower that same year. Yogananda says that these strokes of luck weren't actually luck at all, but were due to the spiritual power of yoga. In other words, he believes that God helped him shape events to his benefit so that he would graduate. Short form note: what Yogananda describes here is a form of manifesting, shaping the world around you through focused intentions and the belief that those intentions will become reality. Rhonda Byrne's book, The Secret, provides a more modernized explanation of manifesting, which she calls the law of attraction. However, Byrne's version requires you to focus on what you want, which is incompatible with Hinduism's drive for selflessness. That's why Yogananda credits God and yoga for his success on his final exams, rather than his own spiritual abilities. New section. Yogananda passes on his knowledge. Yogananda had become an accomplished yogi, but his mission in life was far from over. He's remembered as a great teacher, not just a great practitioner of yoga. In this section, we'll discuss the schools Yogananda founded and his legacy. Yogananda says that throughout his life he'd received visions of 3 different buildings. While studying with Yuktaswar, he came to understand that these were 3 schools he would found. The first third of his vision came true when he founded the Yogoda Satsanga Society of India in 1917, near the city of Ranchi. However, it would be many years before the other 2 schools from his visions became reality. Yogananda says that his schools combine spiritual and practical education, much like his own training with Yuktaswar did. The school in Ranchi, for example, taught students academic subjects like math and literature, along with offering classes in agriculture, industrial job training, and business. Short form note: the Yogoda Satsanga Society, YSS, still exists today, and it teaches Kriya Yoga to people of all backgrounds and religions. The YSS now has 4 separate ashrams and hundreds of smaller facilities throughout India and the surrounding countries. The organization also upholds Yogananda's belief that practical and religious education are both beneficial in seeking God. One of the YSS's goals is to unite science and religion by showing that they have the same fundamental principle: the search for truth. Even when teaching yoga, Yogananda couched his lessons in practical terms. He taught what he calls the science of Kriya Yoga, which explains yoga's seemingly impossible effects using biology and physics. For example, he taught that the human body functions much like a battery. Certain yoga techniques connect you with God's infinite energy to recharge that battery, thereby explaining why some yogis don't seem to need sleep. Sri Yuktaswar foretold that this well-rounded approach to teaching yoga would bridge the gap between Eastern and Western cultures. People who would normally be skeptical about spiritual practices would listen to a college-educated man explaining those practices and their benefits in scientific terms. Evaluating the science behind ideas in yoga. Using scientific terms and principles to explain spiritual topics is a fairly common practice, but non-scientists may use these terms differently from their formal scientific definitions. This is often referred to as pseudoscience, something that appears to be science but actually isn't. For instance, when Yogananda says that the body stores and uses energy, in one sense, that's scientifically accurate. The body uses energy that it extracts from food and stores excess food as fat. However, Yogananda was actually talking about a different form of cosmic spiritual energy that can't be observed or measured in any way. Note that science requires data. Theories must be testable, and the results of those tests must be repeatable. Therefore, because there's no way to test Yogananda's claims about spiritual energy and yogis' abilities to forego sleep, those claims can't be described as truly backed by science, regardless of whether he uses scientific language to describe them. Yogananda's life in America. True to Yuktaswar's prediction that Yogananda would teach yoga in the West, Yogananda received an invitation to speak at the 1920 meeting of the International Congress of Religious Liberals, held in Boston. Yogananda accepted the invitation and made the trip to America. During his speech, Yogananda spoke about how God is universal. Therefore, regardless of their specific beliefs and rituals, all who seek God should think of themselves as part of the same religion. Yogananda's first speech in America. Yogananda gives very few details about this speech in Autobiography of a Yogi. However, the Self-Realization Fellowship's blog provides a brief summary of it. His speech covered three key points. First, he said that religions shouldn't be separated from each other by dogmatic beliefs and practices. Rather, all religions should be united by the universal understanding that God is bliss, and union with God is the only way to achieve true happiness. Second, Yogananda stated that God must be understood intuitively, through experience, rather than logically. This is crucial because trying to understand something logically means separating yourself from it and trying to learn through observation, while the purpose of religion is to unite with God. Finally, he elaborated that Kriya Yoga provides concrete, practical techniques for people to understand and unite with God. In short, Yogananda's speech was a distillation of his beliefs and his mission, to bring people of all backgrounds and faiths together with God through Kriya Yoga. Yogananda fulfilling his destiny. By this time, Yogananda explains, he fully understood the destiny that Lahiri Mahasaya had foretold for him. He would bring yoga to the West, becoming a teacher and guide for thousands of people. So, after the Congress of Religious Liberals ended, Yogananda stayed in the U.S., and California became his home for the rest of his life. Short form note, although Yogananda officially made his home in California, he spent the next 10 years traveling all over the U.S. to give lectures and presentations about yoga. In fact, he spoke at many of the largest auditoriums in the country during this time, and these venues were frequently filled to capacity. In 1925, Yogananda founded the headquarters of the Self-Realization Fellowship, a global branch of the YSS in Los Angeles, California. The headquarters was the second of the three buildings he'd seen in his visions. Short form note, in the mid-1930s, Yogananda reduced his traveling and lecturing to focus on growing and guiding the YSS and the Self-Realization Fellowship. Yogananda compiled his teachings into a series of lessons that people could continue to study after his death, and he developed a retreat program that the fellowship still uses. Today, the Self-Realization Fellowship consists of more than 500 temples, ashrams, and schools all over the world. Yogananda notes that he visited his home country of India in 1935. While he was there, Yukteswar granted him the title Paramahansa, the highest honor a yogi can earn, to commemorate his spiritual achievements. Short form note, Paramahansa translates to Supreme Swan and indicates someone who's achieved enlightenment. The title comes from a myth about a swan that was able to drink only the milk from a solution of milk and water. Just as that swan could separate the milk from the water, a Paramahansa can separate the real, God, from the illusory, Maya. Yogananda traveled back to America in 1937. He says that upon returning, he found that his students had founded an ashram for the Self-Realization Fellowship in Encinitas, California, near the coast. What his students had intended as a pleasant surprise was, in fact, the fulfillment of the final part of Yogananda's vision, an ashram by the sea, the third building he'd foreseen. Short form note, the Encinitas ashram is much more than just a religious retreat. It's a tourist attraction, a concert venue, and a nature reserve as well. Yogananda spent much of the remainder of his life at this ashram. In fact, it's where he wrote Autobiography of a Yogi. The end of Yogananda's life. Yogananda ends his story in 1945, at the end of World War II. He explains that he and the other residents of the Encinitas ashram came together to thank God for bringing peace and pray that the world would never know such strife again. Yogananda looked at the assembled yogis and remarked that he, a monk sworn to celibacy, had been blessed with an enormous family. Yogananda died in 1952. His funeral service, held in Los Angeles, attracted hundreds of people who came to pay their last respects to the great teacher and spiritual leader. Short form note, Paramahansa Yogananda was buried in Forest Lawn Park in Glendale, California. A report by Forest Lawn's mortuary director notes that Yogananda's body had not decayed in the 20 days between his death and burial, and that he seemed to be contently smiling even in death. Yogananda's legacy lives on through the YSS and the Self-Realization Fellowship, which ensure that his spiritual family continues to grow.